What is up? What's going on? Listen, it's Thursday, March 1st, 2018. Why am I talking like this? Well, one, because I'm downstairs and my son is asleep just up the steps right in front of me. And tomorrow's his birthday. I'm also whispering because do you want to know how to survive a scandal? Tonight, we had the first installment of the crossover episodes of Scandal and How to Get Away with Murder. Welcome to the Scandal Recap. I am Larry Brown Jr., joined by my fantastic friend, Janiyah Wright. This is an epic evening that we are experiencing now live. Thank you to all of you who have joined us in the chat. We know that Murder is on right now, and some of you are watching Murder, so if you're watching this afterwards, thanks so much for hanging out with us in the after show. But to all of you who are live in the chat right now, thank you so much. Shout out to Lacey Rideout PG. We must shout out Mrs. Creole Davis. You were the first one in the chat tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. We also have Grace and Stanley Johnson. Stanley Johnson, what's up? Ida Matrix, hey family, what's up? Akoshua O, Kat Harlem, Janiyah, they are all here tonight.
Yay, LBJ. I am so happy everyone is here. And I'm not surprised, LBJ, because that episode was amazing. LBJ and I text messaged a little bit during the show, and we wish we had plans differently. To instead of having our recap episode tonight, to have it a little bit later so we can all be watching How to Get Away with Murder right now for the continuation. So we are going to do our best to keep it short tonight and really get through what happened in the beginning of this this multi-show, multi-episode extravaganza, because it was good tonight, LBJ. It was really good.
It was so good. It was like the tension and the energy of the episode was palatable from the time that the show began. We started with a moment how to Get Away with Murder started in the big lecture hall on campus, and Olivia Pope is now a professor at this law school in Washington, D.C., imaginary law school. I wonder what the significance of that name is. If we looked it up.
It was DeWitt was the name of the school she was teaching at.
The DeWitt's name is in Shondaland. Secondly, we are watching her write on the board, as Annalise wrote on the board, How to Get Away with Murder. And she says, How to Survive a Scandal. I'm just like, oh, this is about to be everything. Then we fast forward, and Olivia's taking a people poll of the class, and the last person to answer the people poll is none other than Annalise Keating. She answers the question, and she's like, oh, well, who are you? She's like, are you about to find out who I am? And then the episode begins, and it is an amazing ride that's still going on live right now. As we said earlier, Janiyah, what I loved about tonight's episode was that we'll get into the nuts and the bolts and the nitty gritty of everything, because we want to make sure that we cover all of what's being covered in the recap. So next week, we'll pick up with all the details and all of the granular deep dives that we like to do with the predictions. But I want us to really focus on what they've kind of framed here. They made tonight look like a brand new show. Like
and LBJ, not only was it a brand new show, I have to agree with Mrs. Creole Davis. She said that they turned it into Wakanda tonight. Okay, LBJ.
Listen, people of Wakanda.
What have you done, Mrs. Creole Davis? You set Larry back into his impression of what he thinks the king of Wakanda should and would be doing. Once again, last week, Larry was fresh off of seeing Black Panther. Last time we had a chat, and we couldn't wait. We couldn't wait, LBJ, for Black Panther for it to sweep the world in the way that it has. And now it happened, and I had the exact same thought tonight, Mrs. Creole Davis. There were some parts of this episode that were a celebration of Black culture. It just was. It was so good. Why don't we hop in, LBJ? You kicked us off talking about how the episode kicked off. It was a scandal episode, but it started like the very first episode of How to Get Away with Murder. What did you think of that, LBJ? I thought it was epic.
Oh, yeah, I totally thought it was epic. I'm not sure if you heard me in the beginning when I said that we started off with her writing How to Survive a Scandal on the board, and we went through that entire exchange. And I agree with Mrs. Creole Davis. It was just like a Wakanda. It was Wakanda overflow. Like it was just a Wakanda waterfall. Like they
Yes.
told you not to go chasing waterfalls, but in Wakanda you should chase these waterfalls because these waterfalls got some richness all up and through it. Because we had Michaela, we had Marcus, and we had the M&Ms. Michaela and Marcus. I'm going to call them the M&Ms.
Oh no, it's so good. I hate it.
M&Ms, and we had Annalise, and we had Olivia. And tonight's episode was called Allow Me to Reintroduce Myself. And that is what Olivia said in this episode. I loved it because we got to see all of this Black girl magic and Black boy joy. And we got to immerse ourselves in that culture. We got to immerse ourselves in the very heartbeat of what happens. Excuse me, when y'all know I sometimes drink sparkling water and it can get to me. Shout out to LaCroix. And we got to see the very heartbeat of how these class action lawsuits or these big movements can occur. We have been in the center of these movements throughout the history of America. And Shonda was very pointed in adding to the commentary of our current society as relates to the criminal justice system.
Yes.
There is a need for criminal justice reform in America, and these two episodes are clearly dealing with it with underlying currents of personal selfishness as well as vendetta attached.
Yes. LBJ, I'm almost getting a victory over here as you're talking. Because because it is so good. Dan Blakemore in the chat said yes to Wakanda and Shondaland, hashtag cosign. It's so true, LBJ, that she used that platform tonight to there were a couple things Shonda was doing tonight, LBJ. Number one, she was saying, all right, I'm leaving ABC to go to Netflix. I need to get on the record before I leave this here mainstream channel. That's what she said, OBJ. She asked herself that question, then she answered. And she said, I know what the answer is. The answer is, I am going to start to spin in my imagination the world that we should be living in. And it is a world that is taking actual concrete action to improve things as it relates to the criminal justice system. LBJ, she was just hitting the nail on the head in terms of ripping from the headlines and looking at today.
Oh, totally. And we also got an opportunity. What I loved about this episode as well tonight, we got an opportunity to allow John Q. Public, Black Public, an opportunity to delve into what happens in Wakanda, right? I mean, we've got, if you're Black watching this, African American, you know how we get down. You know how the aunties, how the uncles, how the cousins, how you, me, how Janiyah, how we all get down and get along, right? We got a chance to see how we all get along based on your social economic status, based on your pedigree, based on your background, based on what you had, the access, the resources, the lack of. We got to see that tonight. I mean, the shade battle that went down between Olivia and Annalise was palatable again tonight. We got to see them. Olivia comes to Annalise's door like, you're crazy. You got a little history, ma'am. I don't know if I can work with you. Annalise did her research, and she's like, hold on. Just because I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth with a horse between my legs and in boarding school doesn't mean I know how to get down with you. Remember, Cicely Tyson was the one who was trying to bring Annalise back down. Her character was trying to bring her back down to size. And she said, you think there's something sitting up in your fancy-ass house. You're sitting in your fancy-ass house. When she was in her mama's house. When she was in Annalise's house. So Annalise rose to the top. Olivia, she's our kind of people, if you will. So we're dealing with that in the episode. And what I love that they did is when they really got to get the beasting battle going on. Yeah. He was like, listen, you came down here on a mega bus trying to ask me. Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is OL, I to the VIA. You don't come in here. So, man, you need to behave. Like, you're not going to come in here and run my shop. This is my town, my rules. I am the Black woman about town.
And LBJ, and the reason that was so good, it's just exactly what you said, that it doesn't matter where these women came from. They have very different origin stories. But at the end of the day, they have landed in the same place. They are both women that have been in the struggle for power, the struggle for personal understanding and personal redemption, this push and pull from the public spotlight and in their private lives. And they are both women who have grown up in at least professionally, wanting to make an impact, and just struggling, trying to find the best way to do that. And that's actually how the episode kicked off. It was Olivia was there, you know, she's in her hashtag life after the White House, okay? And she is there teaching a class at DeWitt. In the chat, it was revealed, who was it, LBJ, in the chat that said that DeWitt is actually okay, Lacey Rideout in the chat said DeWitt is a common Ethiopian name. I'm wondering if we can continue to peel back the significance. And so there we are with Olivia Pope teaching a class, trying to figure out what her life after the White House is. And Professor Keating is sitting in on the class. And Olivia says to the class, you know, I'm here to teach you about, you know, how to get away with a scandal. What are the main reasons why people fail at getting away with preparing for a crisis? And Annalise Keating raises her hand to say, oh, maybe it's because I don't even know they're in a crisis. LBJ, once again, it's just commentary on the United States of America. How many of us are sitting around blind to the injustices that are happening right now? You know, and Professor Keating, at the end of the class, she comes down and she makes a case to Olivia. She says, listen, I need your help. Right now, I have a case that I want to get fast tracked to the Supreme Court, and it is about the underfunding of public defenders. That people right now who are being represented by public defenders are not getting adequate representation, and we need this case to go to the Supreme Court. And Olivia immediately, she's wanting to say no, I'm not into it, I'm not up for that. And Annalise shuts her down and says, just read this brief. I'm going to give you this gigantic brown folder, you know. And you know, on How to Get Away with Murder, they use brown folders in the same way that on Scandal, they use the magical printer and start putting color photos on the window. So this was another crossover, okay? She's handing the brown folder over and says, just read the brief. And so Olivia does read it. And LBJ, the next thing we see is Olivia creeping herself on into the hotel where Annalise is staying. And they had a little power play exchange, LBJ. But at the end of the day, you know, Annalise Olivia tried to say to Annalise, this isn't going to work because of your sordid past. And Annalise says the only thing she could say, which is that this is bigger than me. You know, we've got to make this happen. Olivia comes around, she signs on, LBJ, and then things are rolling. Meanwhile, LBJ, back at QPA, what's happening at QPA, LBJ? I'll let you take it because we all know the Q is just, it's your favorite character.
Q is my favorite character, but here's the thing. I know many of you are in the chat, like, why are y'all talking now? Because we are in the Express chat. We are TSA preing this conversation. So I'm going to take this opportunity to blast right through this so that we can get back to How to Get Away with Murder, because many of you have the DVR paused right now. So we go to QPA, and QPA is in the midst of trying to find something to do. What do they end up doing? They take this opportunity to team up with Jake to take down Olivia. It's really the Q and the QPA trying to take Olivia down, right? Why she's trying to take Olivia down? Because Olivia has now gone to the White House to bring Annalise and this class action lawsuit to try to fast track it to the Supreme Court so that we can change the injustices in America and bring justice to the justice system. And they're at QPA. Jake slips from the Oval Office after Melly tells him to allow the gladiators to leak that Olivia was fired from the White House to the media. And this is what they began doing. We see them starting to use their various gladiator tactics to get Olivia, to bring down Olivia. And Quinn really is the person who's behind this entire thing. Mind you, when we first got to QPA in the show, Quinn was researching Olivia on Google, attempting to figure out her whereabouts. She learned that she was a college professor, what she was doing now, all that jazz. All this to say, Olivia and Quinn come together. They had a meeting of the minds in the garage. Sidebar, why was Quinn, if Quinn is the Q in QPA, why was her car parked way in the back of that parking garage? Shouldn't she have valet bringing her car up to her when she leaves out that private elevator in that loft office? She shouldn't be walking that far to her car. She could be killed at any given time.
I know.
But we see Olivia really come in. She lives her Olivia thing on Quinn, and she's like, "You said you wanted your office, your firm to be about justice. Well, make sure you're about justice. You're on the wrong side of this, Olivia Quinn. And I know who you're working for. I know what you're doing." And what ends up happening? Well, she puts the white hat on and she gladiates, thanks to Gabby read, as well as some other intel that was passed to her. And Melly becomes tragic Melly because Melly threatened Olivia this episode, and she said to her, "If you're on the, I'm not going to do this. I'm not for this. If you do this, you will become an adversary of this White House." Olivia, like, this is not the first time that that's happened. So this is essentially Robin Lindsay's story, and some of the things that were there. There's way more stuff that we're going to cover once we go back and watch How to Get Away with Murder that's taking place right now.
LBJ, that was a perfect summary of that storyline. And the other piece that comes up during the course of this is Olivia having some interface with Fitz and the Fitzgerald Grant Institute. And so after Olivia has agreed to take on the case and she is working with Annalise, Annalise brings in a member of her team, Michaela Pratt, which we all love to hate her from How to Get Away with Murder. It was so wonderful that she was a part of this episode with all of her, hashtag Black Girl Magic, but also with her very complicated, character story. So it was wonderful to have her there. And we see Olivia, Annalise, Michaela going and collaborating with the Fitzgerald Grant Institute. So then we're also having Fitz and Marcus in the mix. And this whole group is putting together the master plan of how they are going to finesse Annalise's past, finesse the reality of Olivia's past, which, as Larry said, has now come out to light. How we're going to finesse all of this, keep the focus where it should be, which is on getting this case to the Supreme Court on a fast track status, and to execute what is right for the public. In the process of doing that, which again, we'll come back and talk about in more detail at a later point, in the process of doing that, we have a few kind of, moments where Fitz is calling out Olivia and saying to Olivia, remember who you used to be. We also have a couple of moments where we see Marcus remembering who he used to be, LBJ. This is why the name of this episode was so good. Let me reintroduce myself.
And I think that, yes, I think that is something that I was going to bring forward for this episode. This clearly dealt with the very core of who we are. Someone in the chat said, I was actually moved when Olivia returned to the very core of who she is. And it really took a lip quiver nectar moment, if you will, from between Olivia and Fitz, which I actually enjoyed seeing, with him hyping his girl. He hyped his girl.
He sure did. Hyped her right up.
Who she is. And the other thing that we got to deal with here, because with this Wakanda Fest going on, and the storyline is still continuing, we're going to wrap this conversation up, folks. We've got to observe and applaud the fact that we dealt with the fact that Black is right, that Black is good, Black sticks together, Wakanda forever. I love the moment when we were in the bar and when Olivia and Marcus were in the bar, and Marcus he reassured Olivia as he planted the seed that Fitz watered and sprouted, because Marcus reassured Olivia of who she is and her Blackness. Like, you've been dealing with all this, but let me remind you, you are my sister, not my sister. You are my sister, SISTA, SISTUH. You know how y'all do with your conferences and everything. You are my sister.
We like to spell things phonetically, LBJ, and it's the phonetics of our preferred pronunciation. That's how we do. And
it's good. But essentially, Marcus told Olivia in that moment, he said, she said, why are you here? Why are you with me? Why do you continue to do this? He said, listen, we're Black, and which means I'm always here for you and I'll always root for you. That's what we do. That's how we do.
It's so true, LBJ. But I also was looking at this as again, Shonda using her platform, almost making a challenge to people to kind of say, are you standing in unity, Black people, around this issue? And so, there we were with two people who were clearly not getting along in terms of general life philosophy at that point. But what Marcus was saying is, this is bigger than you and I. We're now getting to the core of what is important for our community. And guess what? I'm not going to let what's going on with you and me get in the way of that. Another time, LBJ, that we saw these wonderful relationships fleshing out and people remembering who they were. It was Marcus. Once again, he goes back to his old neighborhood. He goes back to the bar where he grew up, back in the neighborhood. He takes Michaela with him, and it was wonderful. He said, He said, listen, everything that I've done to this point has been for the people that are in this neighborhood, in my neighborhood, where my neighborhood bar is situated. He took Michaela there. And in sharing that with Michaela, if anyone knows Michaela's past, we all know that Michaela is a person who works very hard to distance herself from the reality of her very low poverty, low income past, poverty stricken past. She tries to distance herself from it, pretend like it's not there. There are some other horrors in her past as well she tries to distance herself from. LBJ, this Marcus was saying, listen, perhaps I've disconnected, but I'm not doing it for the sake of disconnecting. I'm doing it for the sake of empowering and going back and reaching back, and I never forget. So that was also, again, Shonda, Marcus, Michaela, all of that, LBJ, was let me reintroduce myself. In other words, let me remind myself, but all of us, about our priorities and what's important.
Can I take this moment for you to reintroduce yourself, my sister?
Yes.
Because tonight you are my sister, Janiyah. You got your head wrapped all gay laid up. And then if you look over your shoulder, folks, look over Janiyah's shoulder. What do you see there? There is a fan that says Sisters, SISTAN.
LBJ, there is a funny story to go along with that fan. We don't have time for tonight.
You got it from the conference, I'm sure.
I wish we had time. I will tell that story on our next show. But LBJ, it's so relevant for our show tonight. Let me tell you that. But LBJ, let's get really quickly to how things wrapped in the episode. Let's just wrap up the key themes. The key thing that happened was, number one, we were able to successfully, despite Quinn initially partnering with Melly, #Petty Melly. Somebody was bringing back the Petty Melly in the chat.
That lady was tragic, Melly.
She was so petty and tragic. And so, despite her pettiness, despite Quinn for a moment wanting to spite Liv instead of keeping her eyes on the larger prize of justice, in spite of all of that, we were able to successfully get this case fast-tracked to the Supreme Court. How do we have to do it? There was a little willing and dealing. There was a little bit of us, having to get some undercover information and carry it hither and thither. There was a little bit of that. But at the end of the episode, LBJ, a couple of things happened. Number one, we definitely had our case on its way to the Supreme Court, which is, I believe, where the How to Get Away with Murder episode is picking up. Number two, there was an alliance formed between Annalise Keating and Olivia Pope. There was even some beautiful imagery of the two of them walking down the steps of courthouse. Olivia is in her brightly colored wrap coat, and Annalise is in her brightly colored wrap coat, and they're both walking firmly, with a purpose, just really giving it to us with the good weave swinging left and right. And LBJ, they formed an alliance. Third thing that happened, Olivia committed not just to this alliance, but to this new direction. Okay, we watched her kind of say, listen, I am going back to my roots. I'm returning to what was important to me at the very, very beginning. And I'm now going to be more justice oriented in the way that I live my life. And she went as far as to say, LBJ, I'm not going to be fighting with anything but the truth from now on. Now, has she used the truth in some twisted ways in the past? Why, yes, we'll get into that later. But at the end of the day, LBJ, we saw a reawakening of the Olivia Pope from the very beginning. And frankly, LBJ, it's an Olivia Pope that we have never really met. By the time season 1 of this show started, she had already started to turn a little bit. The white hat was already a little dingy. And so we're now going to get a chance to see Olivia self-actualizing, or she's at least on that path. The third thing I would also say is that Quinn recommitted to making sure that QPA is justice oriented. And the last thing I will say is that we also saw the reawakening of the Fitz and Olivia lip quiver nectar exchange through eyeballs. And so, LBJ, I think those are the key takeaways that we would just want to keep in mind for tonight's episode. Do you have anything to add?
I don't have anything to add. I want to see what's going to happen when all of this is said and done. How are they going to get us out of this crossover? We already know that Annalise Keating has an ulterior motive. How is Olivia going to react when she finds out that Annalise is using her and she needs her to do something else? On the backhand, on the sister girl backhand, like, girl, do me this favor.
Mhm.
Girl. What's going to happen with all of that? So I want to see how that's going to play out, because that's going to be an epic showdown. Because we know when sister becomes sister, then you have a problem.
You get that right, LBJ. And I also just want to really quickly applaud Shonda for this being a real crossover. How many times has a network, advertised the crossover, and what it really ends up being is a cameo of an actor from another show going into the other show in character, but they don't really have like a substantive impact on plot, and there's not actually a storyline that is connecting the two different shows. LBJ, this was a real and true crossover. So much so that it's still going on right now and we're missing it. So LBJ, I think that we've hit all the main points. After we see what happens and How to Get Away with Murder, we will all circle back next week to catch up with each other and to see how Scandal is going to pick up on all of this. LBJ, do you have any predictions before we sign off?
I can't make a prediction because the second half of the episode is on, and I gotta see the conclusion of the matter for this
Let's
week.
do it.
I'll post my prediction in the comments of this video for next week.
Yes, and LBJ, and one thing I am doing is I'm saving all the comments from this week, everybody. We're always so bad at saving the comments. I figured out how to do it, and I'm saving the comments because there are so many good comments from the chat tonight that we need for next week, when we can actually dissect both episodes in the full crossover. So LBJ,
so tonight you're gonna do some pre-production next week, and you're gonna have these moments out of the chat conversation.
This is more preparation than we've ever done in all the years of this Scandal recap. This is more preparation than we've ever had. So look at 2018. Look at Wakanda. It's amazing.
Look at my sister. Look at my sister.
LBJ, I think we did pretty well. 30 minutes? I think that's not bad at all.
That's how we did in the beginning. We're going back to season 1 for us.
Let us reintroduce ourselves. That's right.
Right. How to do a show in 30 minutes.
That's so good. Oh my gosh! Thank you, everybody, so much for joining us tonight. We want to make sure we all have time to get into How to Get Away with Murder, and looking forward to picking up our conversation next week. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. This is so great.
Yes. Before you guys go, listen.
Getting started.
Once this video posts live on YouTube, please go in the comments and say happy birthday to Candace, my wife.
Today. Oh, that's right. I'm going to just shout
I'm
her
taking
out.
time away to do this conversation, and then so we're going to continue celebrating Candace's birthday, and then we go right into Grayson's birthday.
I was going to say there's 2 birthdays in the Brown household. Also, Grayson, everybody, Larry and Candace's son is turning 1. I just can't believe it's been a year. Happy birthday, Candace. Happy birthday, Grayson. Oh my gosh, so exciting.
Yeah, so guys, make sure you go, not in the live chat comments, but in the comments on the video on YouTube. Candace, thank you guys so much. Love you for watching. We will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.